can say this about season 4. It is going to be so worth the wait.
Nowhere, actually.
A wrecking machine. I'll take it.
I'm still figuring out my own style, Mark, actually.
It was great.
It took 2 minutes and I had to answer, yeah, go for it.
Are you sure you're not interested? I was like, don't ask me again. I can't refuse that twice.
In Holland, in one country.
Here is the YouTube.
She got me so deep and underwater and I drank it. That's not good.
You'll try chocolate from South Africa to Australia to England. It will taste so different.
So it's been really amazing that it's been with you after 10 long years.
The first title we were messing around with, we were going to call it Lockdown. Yeah. And then after a while, we actually kind of realised, God, this is dragging on a lot longer than what we thought it was going to be.
I didn't want to give people a reminder.
Our bass player has a band. We were like, let's go on the road, man. But and then it just came to a screeching halt.
We had to work on like how I was biting the carrot. Like I had to do it very purposefully, you know? You didn't want a weak bite, but you didn't want a bite that was too strong.
Someone jumps the stage and one of our techs just body slams him to the ground and you can see me kick him.
I guess I was too distracted. I was having too much fun. Never a bad thing.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Shona. Hello. Hello, Mark.
So I'm calling on the last light for a 666 blessed shine, and I'm calling on the last light for a 666 blessed shines.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world. I am Mark Sugiyama from Eclectic Arts, based here in Seattle, Washington. Thank you so much for joining me on this Monday, the 3rd of May, 2021. And a few housekeeping things, as always, before we get to my guest interview this afternoon. Coming up, I do have live streams, it looks like almost every day this week, including Saturday, and there's already some scheduled for next week. So if you want to know what's coming up, please follow me as Eclectic Arts Media, one word, on Instagram. That's where I post everything first. And then some of that information gets posted over and migrated over to Facebook. Those are the two main platforms that I use outside of course, being here on YouTube and also on Twitch. And so also, if you happen to be watching this on either of those platforms, if you could subscribe to my channel on YouTube, that's always appreciated. If you want to get notifications, you can hit the notification bell. I realize some people don't want a bunch of things in their email inbox, so that's fine if you just subscribe, like the video, all those kind of fun things. And if you're on the Twitch side of things, if you could follow me over there, that's always appreciated as well. And yeah, so there's a lot of live streams coming up. I took about a 3 or 4 day break just because of making sure that my second vaccine shot was going to not cause any issues, and knock on wood, it seemed to be pretty fairly okay, just a little lethargic, and so I'll take that compared to some people in terms of how they reacted to the vaccine. And yeah, let's get to my guest today. Before I do that, let me head over here. And my guest today is a genre-defying band from Florida. Their new single and music video, Seek and Hide, was just released last month, about less than 2 weeks ago. Please welcome to the Eclectic Arts Virtual Studio, Modern Mimes.
Hello, thank you for having me. Very happy to be here.
Hi, Audie. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Can't complain. It's beautiful, sunny outside. Quite hot, but we like it a little hot over here.
Well, yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to join me. Full transparency, I am a new fan of your band. I saw the press release and checked things out. I'm like, oh, yeah, this is someone I would love to talk to. So I'm glad that you had the time in your schedule to talk with me today.
Absolutely. Well, welcome to the family.
Yeah, this is cool. It's really interesting listening and looking through your the band's work and some of the history of the band. That you're kind of like one of those bands that I really like, because you can't really pigeonhole you into one style or one genre of music whatsoever. There's all kinds of different things going on. And is that something that's organically happened from the start of the band to now?
Absolutely. I don't think we really set out to do any specific kind of genre. It was kind of more what organically came up. And we're not the type of artists that really try to sound like a particular genre or anything. It's just whatever flows through us, and we just kind of let that guide us into creating whatever it's going to morph into.
Okay, yeah, that sounds cool. And with me being Eclectic Arts, and I like lots of eclectic styles of music and just arts in general. So it's right up my alley when I got a chance to listen to some of your music. And it also kind of gives me the sense that as I was looking through things, that I think you're probably one of those artists, correct me if I'm wrong, that pre-COVID, it seemed like you had a lot of momentum building. Things were really starting to go, and then 2020 happened, and then, well, we all know what happened there. Was that pretty much true?
Yeah, we actually felt like things were starting to look up, and we're starting to get to that point where, like, all right, things are starting to take off a little bit more. And then, of course, COVID happened, and we just got completely frustrated, of course, as along with so many other musicians out there. But in general, we can't really take it for granted too much, because we've got to experience some pretty cool things, and we're healthy. So that's the most important thing right now.
Yeah, and that's very true for myself as well, that I have had quite a few silver linings during this last year, and some of it's getting a chance to do these virtual interviews with folks like yourself, because I've met people, you're in Florida, I'm in Seattle, I've met people all around the world through doing these, and once we kind of go back to concerts and live events, then I think, at least for me, I'll kind of see a hybrid. I'll be able to do in-person interviews like I used to do, but then maybe a band's got something they want to promote. Well, let's get on virtually and talk about it before your tour gets to Seattle, that kind of thing.
Yeah, true. I mean, there's like the pros and cons, right? So we were able to kind of discover new ways of communicating and staying engaged with our fans, and and doing these live streams have helped a lot. Like, we've been doing a weekly live stream where we just reach out to the fans, or how we like to call it, family. And we just chat, really. We just keep that connection going,
Yeah, it's very cool. I saw that you guys have been doing that. So that's when I oh, cool. They're utilizing the platform as well to, keep themselves out there, stay connected with their fan base, grow their fan base during this time. And I've been talking to other musical artists about the same thing, that the bands that have taken ways to stay engaged during this time, I really do think it's going to pay off for them once we get back to live events, that some of those fans that didn't know who they were but were watching things the last year will go out to a show now. Oh, that band's coming that I was watching and saw a live stream with, and I want to go see them live now. And versus the bands that for whatever reason decided to just kind of not do much with technology, they're going to in some ways kind of fall a step behind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's interesting. There's a lot of bands, like local bands that we know of, and they just kind of, crickets, like lights out. And we're actually, we're starting to book some more shows and stuff like that for this year. And I've been having actually kind of a hard time getting a local thing going on, because a lot of these bands are either not willing to start playing again, or they stopped playing, or they're not a band anymore. So it's like, it's interesting to see who's actually still going and who's not.
Very true. I've been seeing some of the same stuff around here locally in the Seattle area. It's like, and I'm not, don't get me wrong, I'm not pointing fingers at anybody when it comes to, like, maybe they had legitimate reasons for why they decided to kind of take a break, and then that break became permanent from doing what they're doing during this time. It's been hard on everybody. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, for those that haven't broken up, it's kind of, so are you guys trying to get back together, doing things virtually a little bit, or we're working on songs, or what are you doing? And sometimes, they're like, no, we're not. We're just kind of staying in place until it fully opens. So I'm like, okay, well, again, you'll kind of be a step behind, and you'll have more work to do than the bands that are ready to hit the road and basically just get out there, that are road ready, basically.
Yeah, and now looking back, like, I'm such a germaphobe that I'm surprised that I did all the things that I did during quarantine to finish up, like, the songs and the album that we're going to be releasing later this year. But yeah, we actually did kind of continue working in a different way, of course, but we try to keep going in some way, just to keep things flowing, as opposed to just stopping. And I think that would do something to us mentally, just not doing anything creative in this outlet and in Modern Mimes. It's really close to our hearts. So I think it was important for us to continue regardless of what was happening in the world. And also, you know, I think people need this kind of music more than ever right now, especially the type of things that we talk about in our music. It's, you know, going through those dark times and, you know, finding the light at the end of the tunnel. So we're just like, you know, let's just, you know, release a couple songs and hopefully it'll help people out through a hard time.
Yeah, well, I for one am glad that you decided as a band to do that because then people like me get to, you know, enjoy it and learn more about your band. And you're right, this has been, people are just, they're clamoring for something. If it's something positive, something they can relate to during this time, something that makes them feel better. And so it's great when bands have decided, you know what, we're going to start working on this and put things out and eventually put an album out and do whatever kind of promotional things they're going to do. I know you guys have videos, obviously, that you've been putting out. And doing live streams, so it looks different, obviously, and sometimes it's not quite the same as being there in person, which, you know, can never be replicated right now, at least. But it's its own value that, you know, comes from doing all the things that people are doing, and that's a really good segue when it comes to the new album that's going to be coming out later this year. So, did you start writing this during the pandemic? Was it more like 2019 into the pandemic? What was the timeline like?
It was more 2019, kind of into 2020. We went to Louisiana, I think it was, I want to say the end of February to record. So we pretty much had all the songs done, locked in, and we're just in the recording process in February of 2020. And then unfortunately I was sick at the time, so I couldn't really do much vocals over there. So then it wasn't until we came back, because we toured right after that, and then we came back home here in Florida, and that's kind of when, by the end of the tour is when Corona, you know, blew up, and it was in March. And then I think it was April that I laid down all the vocals.
Okay, all right. So yeah, you had a bit of a hybrid. So you had stuff that was done in the studio, and then you had stuff, your vocals that you ended up doing later during the pandemic time. And so was there ever thought of putting out the entire album like at the end of 2020?
I think we kind of somewhat mapped it out so it would be released this year. So the idea that we first started off with was releasing a song a month. And just kind of giving each song its space to do whatever it was going to do. And then I think we did that for like 5 songs. And then we decided to stop and just kind of like let those songs breathe a little bit and get their time, and not release anything for a few months. And then we dropped Seek and Hide this month, or last month, sorry, April 23rd.
Okay, well, it's... For people that aren't familiar with your band, and before they go look on YouTube or something like I did, how would you describe your band? Because it is pretty difficult in terms of there are so many different influences going on.
Oh yeah, yeah. This is a question that's always kind of tough to answer, but it's definitely. I'll just list some of our influences to kind of paint a picture. So it's like as if. 9 Inch Nails and maybe like Jewel had a baby. Maybe something like that. There's the electronic influences, and then there's, you know, the more soft melodic voice with songwriting as a really strong point there. Very deep lyrical content that you have to kind of delve into a little bit more, as opposed to, you know, fun lyrics, you know.
Okay, and I did notice that lyrics definitely seem to be a real focal point in terms of, even like with the videos. I mean, they're right in the description. You can read along with what you're singing. So with the new album, what are some of the topics that you're tackling?
So with the new album, it's there's a heavy underlying theme about depression and kind of coming through that, and you facing yourself, going through the darkness to get to a brighter version of yourself, and finding, realizing that you have the potential to get out of it and be the greatest version of yourself. Also, there's some, kind of end of the world type of, I don't want to say prophesizing, but a little bit of that in there as well. And also finding faith and hope. I think those are some very potent themes in our music, and it kind of carries over. It's all of our music, previous albums as well, is kind of like that internal battle within yourself.
Okay, and having said that, particularly with the first topic when you mentioned depression, are we speaking then, if you don't mind my asking, is that from personal experience then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I'm very open about it. I've mentioned it many times before. I deal with depression on pretty much a daily basis, and my outlet is music. It's art, and this is the way that I've been able to cope with it. And yeah, you just find different ways to be okay, and sometimes it's okay not to be okay. So there's some of that in the music as well. Allow yourself the time and the space to kind of feel things out, and then tomorrow's a new day, and you can build yourself up again.
Very well said. I personally had my own experiences with depression and anxiety, so that's why I wanted to ask. So it's something I relate to, and I've had guests on who've been very transparent and talked about their own issues with either or both in some cases, and what they've done on a daily basis to work through it. And sometimes, just like you said, it's okay not to be okay certain days, because you need to process that, and you need to get it kind of out of your system, and then kind of see where you go the next day. And I was telling somebody else, actually just recently, that we're talking about this, that it's kind of like if you were a former alcoholic or drug addict, that you always carry it with you. So it's not like you're somehow done with it and you can just move on. It's like, no, you carry it right there with you, and then every now and then it sticks its ugly ass head out and says,
yes.
Hey, remember me? And he's like, no, I don't remember you. I don't want to remember you. Go away.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I definitely have those days too, where it's like, and I can't necessarily predict it either. It could be something where I'm looking forward to the day, and then something kind of hits me. It could be something I read, or something that's just a feeling that kind of overcomes me. And it's like, I can feel that weight start to happen. That if anyone out there that ever deals with any of these issues, you know exactly what I'm talking about, because it just kind of, it's almost like a blanket that just kind of comes over you. And then you're like, okay, great.
Like, here we go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just wake up in this terrible mood, and you're just like, I don't want to do anything. I don't want to wake up. I don't want to move. I don't, have the energy sometimes. That's another thing. Like with me, I have the health issues along with it. So that's been kind of, it goes hand in hand for me. Like I have Hashimoto's hypothyroidism, and one of the symptoms of that is depression. And even though I've been taking medication for years, I still get a lot of the symptoms. And so, yeah, just depression's just been part of my life for so long that I don't even know how I would be without that, like maybe it's something that helps me write the way that I write. I don't know. But hopefully it serves some sort of purpose at the end of the day, because I've chosen not to take medication for that in particular. Not saying that I'm against that, for to each his own. Like if that's something that helps somebody else, I think it's great for them to do that. Just for me personally, it's something that I kind of always strayed away from, because I felt like music is what helped me heal.
Again, very well said. I think that we kind of have some things in common in that sense, because when I was going through my toughest times, that was something that professional help was trying to say, hey, maybe we should consider this route in terms of medication. And I was like, that's an extreme last resort for me. Like if there's no other option and I'm just not getting better and I'm getting worse even, then maybe we'll look at that. But I want to try everything else above that. And being a musician myself and being a creative, a photographer and writer and all that kind of thing, it's like I'm going to kind of look at that, look at my family support, friend support, all those other kind of things around me, the systems, and see if that's going to be enough to maybe also take in some of the professional help and put it together and see, is this going to get me out of this hole? And luckily, in my case, it did. But just like you said, it's an individual case basis in terms of when people decide to use medication for their the things that they're struggling with, and those that don't. If that's what's working for you, more power to you. And if it's not, then you do what's best for you. And I think it's great that you're so transparent about this, because again, I have had a couple other guests in particular, I'm thinking of two, that have also talked about this openly. And it's something that I'm sure new fans and existing fans, some of them are going to relate to it right away, because they're like, this is exactly what I'm going through. And then they'll listen to your music and read your lyrics and go, oh, that's what that means. Because, yeah, it's kind of like that whole like epiphany of like, oh, geez.
Yeah. And that's all that we can be as human beings, I think. To be vulnerable is such a beautiful thing, because we can help each other in a vulnerable space. I feel like if we're just all walking around, trying to play this role, I don't think that we can really help each other that way at the end of the day. So I try to be as vulnerable as possible, because that's the only way I know how to, do anything helpful in the world, I guess. So, that's and it would be kind of cool to be this mysterious artist and have this kind of image or whatever, but I decided at some point that I didn't really want to do that, and I just wanted to be transparent with everybody and really get to the core of just being a human being and going through this process. Because we're all going through it, and we all have something, something that we're battling. And so I think if we can share those experiences through song or whatever it is that you do, you can really relate to people and help each other through that journey.
Yeah, again, very well said. I don't know if I know you guys are doing your live streams on Sundays and that type of thing, but maybe you need to also look into like a separate podcast or something about these specific issues, because you have a lot of really good points that you're making. And we're going to talk more about the new album and the videos and everything. But I'm also curious that, based on this conversation we're having right now for the last 5 or 10 minutes, what's your take on social media in general? Because there is this whole thing of, you can put yourself out there, everything's great, everything's wonderful. Whatever you want to put out is what you put out. And so some bands put out exactly that. It's just that everything looks really great. And then you realize, well, that can't be it, because that's just a social media persona, basically. Mm-hmm. And then other ones will put up, warts and all, great things, not so great things. And so what's your take on social media just in general?
I mean, I think there's the pros and cons, just like anything else. I mean, there's so many useful things to social media as a tool to be able to communicate. And then there's certain things that are not so great about it, the addictive nature of it. I don't like that at all. There's some times that I'm just like, I just want to get off social media. Like, we'll just put music out, no more social media. But at the same time, we don't want to shoot ourselves in the foot, because it is such a great tool to be able to reach your audience directly. I mean, there's no other thing like it. So I think it's just part of our lives now. It's not going to go away. Maybe it'll morph into something else. But for now, we're just, we try to stay on top of, whatever's new ways we can connect with everybody. And like, to each his own. If they want to show more of themselves, that's great. If they want to kind of hide behind a persona, that's great too. I mean, everybody has their own reasons, and I respect them completely. And just for us, we just decided to be a little bit more open and just, hey, look, this is me. This is what I look like most days. Yeah, sure. When I go to a show, my glasses will come off and stuff like that, and I'll dress up a little bit. But other than that, it's really what you see is what you get. Like, this is who we are.
Well, and I, just for my own personal preference, I appreciate it when you take the approach that you and the band are taking, where it's more of, hey, this is how we are. And, you know, if you like it, then you know organically where you stand with the band, if you want to support them or if you don't want to support them. And like you said, I mean, it is to each his own if somebody wants to put up that other kind of facade. But for me, it's after a while, it's like, well, I know, especially after this year, it's kind of like, I know you can't be smiling all the time. Come on. But again, I understand, you know, the business aspect of it too, and you want to put out certain things depending on what genre you're in, especially if you're like pop music or something like that. But it just doesn't resonate with me, I guess, personally. So then I start looking towards. That's probably why I resonate with a lot of independent artists, because I know it's basically coming from them. There's no middle person there. So whatever they do, if it's going to a show and buying merch at the table, they may have even made some of that merch, or they packaged it when they mailed it to you, and you know, that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah. I silk screen quite a bit of our shirts, and I make the little keychains, and actually I'm not wearing it today, but I have the caps and I sewed the patch on it. Like, we do a lot of stuff ourselves, and it's kind of cool, you know. It's kind of nice to have something from, you know, an artist that you're listening to that they actually made the merch also. So I kind of like that DIY aspect, and, you know, we want to continue having that and never kind of like give that up in that sense. But I do understand why artists have, you know, their personas and things like that. And it's kind of it's a nice barrier, you know, from this reality and that reality. And it's a little bit safer, I would say. You know, in case, what if your band does blow up and then everybody knows you and you can't walk down the street or go to the grocery store? So, I mean, I understand those different perspectives as to why, you know, they do that. And, you know, certain, you know, marketing or whatever looks sell a little bit more, and, you know, whatever, if that's their thing, that's cool. But I've always had a very specific purpose with the music, and I really want to create music that's timeless, and hopefully that's what we're doing. I hope, you know.
Yeah, you know, that's very cool. And I think it's great when bands have a chance to do some of the DIY aspect of things that, yeah, as fans, you really appreciate the fact that someone actually took the time to create this or did some kind of aspect of the merch part of things, or in the music recording part of it, or any of that kind of stuff. Really, it's just kind of like, yeah, this is like, it's homegrown stuff. And if they can manage to keep their hand in some aspect of that as they get bigger and bigger, you know, so be it. And sometimes, you know, it gets to a point where like they don't have time to be able to do all that. But I was just curious, let's kind of move back into Seek and Hide, that what the video is really interesting, and lyrically it's really interesting. So did you already have, as a band, like an idea of like what you wanted this video to look like based on the song and the lyrics?
Actually, no, and I didn't. I'm pretty strong on visuals. Actually, my day job is as a visual merchandiser, so visuals has always been a very important aspect to the music as well. But for this particular song, I didn't have a very set thing or specific vision as to how I wanted it exactly. I just I didn't actually want black and white. I actually wanted it to be more colorful. But talking with the director, Joey Durango, we kind of talked about maybe doing like something high contrasty black and white, and we had worked on another song and another video, and for Portals, and that one was a lot more colorful. So we were like, let's do something completely different on this one, and I think it came together really, really well, and I think it said what it needed to say in a very simply stated but symbolic way. And I think Joey was able to capture what I wanted to say visually that maybe I couldn't see at the time, but now looking at the video, it's what I feel like it needed to be.
Okay, that's part of that that collaboration process, where it's like you said, you were thinking color and thinking something else, and then the director's like, well, I think we should go this way, and then you kind of see in the end, it's like, oh, this came up pretty well and still represents what I wanted it to represent.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and with the new album eventually coming out this year, and like you mentioned, you've been dropping songs and letting them kind of have their time to breathe and kind of do their thing. Do you already have other videos in the can then that you're going to be sprinkling out throughout, the spring and summer, or what are we looking at?
Ooh, I don't know. That's a good question. That actually Seek and Hide is the only other video that we had left to release that's done. But we might go back in and do another video for another song, possibly. Not 100% sure, but it's a possibility, I think.
Okay, cool. So there's the possibility, everybody out there, that there might be another music video coming up. And in the meantime, that you kind of mentioned earlier, you have some live gigs coming up, or they're at least on the schedule, and hopefully, everything happens, knock on wood. Yeah, can you speak to those? What kind of shows do you have coming up? Because one of them is a huge festival.
Yeah, so we have a couple shows starting off this month. May 29th, we're going to be May 26th, we're going to be in Louisiana. And after that, we have May 29th over in Ohio for the Smokin' Country concert, and that's with Drowning Pool we'll be playing with that day. And then we also have Rockfest July 14th over in Wisconsin. So that's a really big one.
Okay, and help educate me. Has the band played festivals in the past before COVID?
We have played a couple of big ones, yes. We played Earth Day Birthday. We've played a big one here in Fort Lauderdale. It's Riptide Music Festival. It's alternative rock, big one. Of course, we played the smaller stage, but yeah. But we've had the opportunity to grace a couple of festivals, which was really nice.
Okay, cool. And it's interesting because I know, like, some of the stuff that I saw, there was a couple live clips that I saw online, and seeing like Ernesto with the bass and guitar. Is there a name for that when there's a bass neck and a guitar neck on the instrument?
Well, I think they just call it like a double neck guitar bass, I guess.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a live drummer that plays in the band, and so how do you approach the live event, the live stage, especially knowing now that you're going to be coming out of the last year and some change of not being able to play live? What's going to be happening once you hit the stage? So for people, especially for people that aren't familiar with you.
Oh, it's a very high energy experience, I would say. I probably seem very timid, which I kind of am, but on stage, it's just a lot of energy, just raw energy, and just passion. I think that's the comment that I've heard quite a bit, that people can feel the passion when we play, and I think that they can expect that from us.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and the stuff I saw, it's almost like you guys could be on many different types of bills in terms of tours, because you could be on like an alternative thing. You could even be on like an indie thing or electronica kind of thing. You could be on an industrial bill, a dark wave bill you would still fit on too. So it's really interesting to see that you have a lot of options where it's not like you're pigeonholed into, well, we should try to be with these type of bands because other fans may not have a clue what we're like, but there's like, no, there's aspects of your band that could fit all these different genres.
Mm-hmm. And that's actually, it's funny that you say that. That's actually been, I think, one of our struggles, in a sense. It has its points where it could be a strong suit, but then at some points, it's I think a lot of people have a hard time putting us somewhere, and I think that's made it a little bit more challenging to kind of move up the ladder. But at the same time, it's just patience and persistence, and just, we continue to work on our craft and get better, and just hopefully people will start to catch on. And like you said, we do have the ability to kind of like squeeze into this show and squeeze into that show, because our songs are so eclectic from each other sometimes too, as well. Like we have some songs that are a lot more metal based, and then some other songs that are a lot more alternative. And then we have like a couple ballads here and there. So it's just a mix, really. So it's kind of one of those things that, you know, it helps sometimes and it hurts sometimes. It just depends on who you're talking to.
And that's a good point. I didn't really think about that, but yeah, it's kind of I should have thought about that, because that's something I run into myself. Because if someone likes, you know, lots of like rock and hard rock and metal type of stuff, they might look on my channel and see some of that, but then they're also going to see, you know, movie people and opera people and ballet folks, and it's kind of like, if you're open-minded, it's great, but if you're like only looking for a certain thing, then it becomes a double-edged sword for me.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, but like you guys are doing, I'm trying to do the same thing. You just stay the course. You keep believing in what you're doing, and eventually the audience comes to you. And I truly believe that, because again, a year ago at this time, God, that's right, because it's May. It's when I started doing these virtual interviews. It was last May. That just the fact that my audience has grown so much during this time tells me, yeah, there's something to it. So, you know, don't waver from it. Keep being eclectic. In your case, keep doing what you're doing with all the different genres of music that's coming through what Modern Mimes does. And again, for me being a newer fan, what's the meaning behind the name of the band?
So Modern Mimes, I think it's kind of relating to the art of what a mime does, and how they're always trying to portray a deeper message behind, you know, their craft. Not necessarily saying it through words, of course, but through their emotions. And I think that Modern Mimes is trying to do a similar thing that a mime does in that sense. And it's just, you know, our modern take on it.
Okay, that's cool. I like the intention behind that, because as you explain that, then it becomes, oh, okay, yeah, that does make sense, and it gels with the music and the lyrics that I read and everything else that and you know, what a mime does. And oh, that's cool. It was and me just being kind of a random thinker. Was there like a second runner-up name for the band that, you know, didn't make the cut?
We actually started off when it was just Ernesto and I as a duo. We started off as One Ion, and that kind of also having the other meaning of one eye on. So basically, like having your third eye open. And I think we came across something that had that name that was like a watch product or something. So we're like, all right, let's change the name to something else. And I remember I came up with Modern Mimes, and I don't know why I was thinking more of a song, but then when I told Ernesto, he's like, that's the band name. I'm like, yeah, you think so? He's like, yeah. I'm like, okay. And I was also thinking about this childhood memory that I had that I was, I don't know, 7 years old or something. And it was like one Halloween, and I decided to be a mime, and I was just very in character. And I was also going through some dark things at the time as a child. And I think I didn't know how to express it in words. So I felt really connected to this character of a mime, because it was my way of trying to speak through, you know, the costume, basically.
Oh, interesting. And it's interesting too, you know, that Ernesto's like, that's the name of the band. It's kind of as soon as you kind of had it, instead of it just being a song title or a lyric or something. And what's also cool is that you have the double M, so you can do all kinds of things visually with the logo and, you know, on merch and everything else that you know, lends itself to that type of thing too. That's always a plus.
Oh yeah, we've had fun creating some different versions of, like, we had like the 2M thing, and then now the latest one we came out with the keys that's kind of in the shape of an M too. So yeah, it's been fun creating different logos and things.
Cool. And I'm also just kind of curious, what is your own personal music background? So like, what got you into music and singing and songwriting and all that?
I don't know. I just started singing one day, to be honest. I guess watching, you know, growing up on MTV and stuff like that. And I feel like I had an older brother, and he was very much into music as well. He actually, he's a DJ, and he used to produce a lot of music, just himself, make beats and stuff. But he was always watching MTV, and so I would hear and see what he was watching. And one day I just connected with this ballad. I think it was a Patti Smith country singer. And I started singing it one day when I was 4 years old, and my parents were like, wow, she can actually sing. And ever since then, I just kept singing. And when I was about 16, I wanted to learn how to play something because I really wanted to write my own music. So I tried playing the keys, and I just realized that I wasn't that coordinated. It was difficult for me to do both at the same time, both hands. And so I said, what about guitar? So I tried guitar, and that really felt right. So that's where I do most of my writing on a guitar, or I'll just come up with a whole entire melody and lyrics, depending how it comes. But yeah, it wasn't, my mom's not really musical. From my dad's side, there's a little bit more of a musical influence there, because he does play like the bongos, and his mom, my grandmother, she used to play guitar and she used to sing. And my grandfather from that side, he's very poetic. He's written a lot of poems. So I think somewhere in my dad's genes, maybe it traveled down a little bit.
That's cool. And when you said that when you found the guitar, that seemed that was kind of the instrument you were looking for. Are you basically self-taught? Did you ever do lessons for a little bit, or a little bit of both?
I did lessons for about 2 years, I think it was. And yeah, I did lessons for 2 years, and I'm okay. I'm not like the best guitar player or anything, but for me, it was more of a matter of expression. I just needed to express what was in my head. So it was more a tool for songwriting, as opposed to, I want to be this amazing guitar player. So it was just a lot more of the songwriting that I was interested in, and just being able to come up with like those melodies to carry a song. And then, Ernesto and we've known each other for years, and our relationship came before anything else. We're married, and he was off, with other bands, and I was doing my solo thing. I also had another band at the time. And it's funny because he never saw himself playing with a female front. And that was kind of always the thing. Like, I remember trying to play with him in the past, because we've known each other since high school. And so, I kind of left it at that. I was like, all right, that's cool. I respect that. And we just kind of went our separate ways as far as, musically. And then it wasn't until much later in life when we got married, and we just one day we just kind of like looked at each other like, hey, you want to make some music? And we started making music. And for me anyways, it was just kind of like this aha moment, because I was kind of on this journey and this search for this particular person to complete, this sound that I heard in my head. And meanwhile, it was right in front of me the whole time. So.
Well, I'm glad you eventually found each other musically.
Yeah. Me too. It took a while, but here we are.
Yeah, and I see Queen saying that she just sampled 4 of your songs, and your voice, especially in the lower register, sounds amazing. It's very unusual, and she likes it. So it's a nice compliment from Queen, who's in the chat right now. And yeah, it's isn't it interesting that sometimes you never know where something's going to come from, and you're like trying to find it, and then it's like, in this case, it's like right there with you all the time. Anywhere you saw Ernesto and just didn't realize it. Yeah. And the same for him, like you said, that he never pictured himself with a singer that was female, in a band. So I'm glad you musically found each other so that you can start doing Modern Mimes and pushing things forward the way that they're at, because there's so much potential there with what you guys are doing. And I don't think I've ever really, in a long time, I haven't heard anything that sounds like you guys. That's what I think really intrigued me the first time I checked out anything related to your band. I was like, oh, this is really cool. So I started going down that rabbit hole.
Nice.
and I'm very glad that I did. So you've kind of mentioned what's coming up with the shows and maybe a new video. You kind of have to kind of wait and see on that. Are there any plans to do any kind of, not only your live streams that you do on Sundays, but is there any chance of doing a band, like a performance live stream?
Possibly. I think there might be something going on in Louisiana in the next coming months. I'm not sure what date yet, but there might be a live stream in the next few months, possibly.
Okay, well, for everybody out there, if you go to Modern Mimes official site, and if you follow them on all the social media platforms, then you'll get a chance to see what they're up to, and if the live stream happens, and if when the next music video comes out, if it comes out. And obviously the shows are on the schedule right now, so the live shows, hopefully that happens. And I see Queen's asking a question about some of your vocal influences.
Oh, so some of my vocal influences, I have a lot of like alternative, like that 90s era grew up on. Alanis Morissette was probably one of the first ones that really caught my attention. Also Jewel and Fiona Apple, Tori Amos, grew up on all of those. And, some male vocalists as well, Brandon Boyd from Incubus and Peter Steele from Typo Negative, Christina Scabia from Lacuna Coil. Those are probably the main ones.
Okay, and that kind of also just kind of gave me a little bit of a light bulb thing. Where does the heavier side of the band come from? Is it from you and Ernesto, or is it one of you tends to like that music more than the other?
I would definitely say it's Ernesto. He's the heavy metal guy for sure. And then Justin as well. He's always played in metal bands, as far as I know. So yeah, they're the metal heads, and I'm kind of like, I'm the more I guess eclectic one of the group, where I listen to a lot of different genres and Latin music and ambient music, Portishead. Like, I know Ernesto loves Portishead too. But I'm kind of all over the place. I listen to all sorts of music.
Okay, very cool. Well, I'll put it all together and we get Modern Mimes. So that's awesome with your influences. And again, Audie, thank you so much for taking the time today. I really appreciate you spending almost 50 minutes with me.
Absolutely, anytime. It was a lot of fun.
Great, yeah, and if there's something else, maybe we can reconnect this summer to help promote, or just to kind of see where things are. Hopefully, they continue to open up, so all your shows actually do happen that are on the schedule. But I love reconnecting with the guests that I talked to, and I thoroughly enjoyed talking with you today.
Awesome, thank you. So likewise, and I'd love to do this again sometime.
Great. Well, have a good night down there in Florida, and stay safe, and hopefully get a chance to talk to you sooner than later then.
Sounds great. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Have a good one.
You too.